Hi, I'm Sean Walker from iTrain Hockey. Today we're doing the backwards full crossover. So a full crossover looks like this, where we're doing a C-cut, and then we're doing an outside edge kick. And what we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna do this in a circle. So when we're doing it in a circle, it just gives us a nice place for beginners to start and really get the full motion down, get the technique down. And then what we're gonna do is actually break down each of the components. So we'll just do the C-cut. We're just gonna be doing the outside edge kick and focusing on the crossover, but we'll break it down into its parts just to try to perfect this motion. Okay, so first one we're gonna do is just focus on the C-cut. When we do the C-cut, we wanna really make sure that the toe is digging into the ice and the C is a really rounded out C. A lot of players will do a C and it's kind of like ovular. We want more grip on the ice, so I really want you to focus on turning your toe in. So what we're gonna do is, if I had an actual circle, my right skate would just be sitting down and I'd just be gliding on that leg, and it would be sort of be on the track of the circle. So it would just be on that track. While that's happening, my left leg would be focusing on and creating a nice C-cut. So in the same way, if I had, let's say, a big whiteboard and a marker, I would have to, in order to draw a really big C on the whiteboard, my wrist would be pointing down, and then my wrist would be finishing by pointing up. And that exact same way, in creating that C with our hand, we're gonna try to do that with our ankle. And when we do that, when you wrap it in, just make sure you actually lift up your heel. What that does is pronates and it presses into the inside edge of the toe of your skate. I think figure skaters have really jagged edges on their toes. We have that exact same ice pick, just ours doesn't, it's not very jagged. So ours, we still want to focus on getting that grip on the ice. And again, this is outdoor ice, so I've got a really good fine grip, and I'll be able to dig into the ice quite a bit, but it'll just give me that grip that I need. So the main focus here is really opening up that ankle and really rotating it so it finishes with a nice full C-cut. So another main component is making sure that if I was pushing, let's say going forwards, I'd create it into a T push. If my back leg pushes and my right leg would glide, I'm going to transfer my weight from my left to my right. And we have to think about it in the same way as we're skating backwards. Instead of a T push, we're going to be doing a C cut. I'm putting my weight on my left, I'm doing that C cut, and then I'm sitting down on my right leg. The more we sit down on that right leg, the better, so that we can glide a lot faster. Okay, two main correction points to doing the C-cut. We want to focus on even just using our arm. As I'm skating and I'm doing my left leg C-cuts, I'm actually focusing on using my arm just as like a momentum tool. Another main focus point is making sure that we're always wrapping our C-cut in. Some players will just do the C-cut and they'll kind of finish their C-cut here and maybe pick it up and get into the crossover once we get to that point. But we just don't want to stop here. We really want to wrap it in just so we have a nice long grip. And the proof is always in the pudding. We could actually see the rips in the C-cuts, and they're nice and long, nice and loud. And that just means that we're getting a good strong grip. We're actually doing this and grabbing the ice. Okay, our next point is a C-cut with hip rotation. So it's very similar to the last drill that we did. Instead of my right skate being along the track of the circle, my right skate is actually going to come off the track. And just imagine as if we had like a face-off dot in the middle of the circle. What we're going to do is actually point our toes, our hips, our belly button. Everything's going to be facing the face-off dot, and then we're going to execute a C-cut. So last time we did this and we just did a C-cut, my belly button, my toes, everything was kind of facing forwards. This time we're going to do this, do a hip rotation, and then C-cut. So all you're going to do is point your belly button, point your toes at the face-off dot, and then execute a C-cut. What this is going to do is really maximize the length of the C-cut. And then especially when we start doing linear C-cuts and we're skating down the ice, what naturally happens is when we skate backwards, we're not actually skating backwards, we're kind of skating sideways. So what we would naturally do if we're skating in a straight line is sort of weave down the ice. And this just helps us prepare for that type of motion. So as we're doing the C-cut this time, come off the track, open up your hips, then C-cut. When you open up your hips, don't bring your feet together. We still want a nice hockey stance, a nice wide base, but we do that, open up the hips, and then execute the C-cut. All right, one main correction point for the C-cut with hip rotation. I actually, as I was doing the drill, I was just thinking, instead of just focusing on rotating your hips, we can almost do a C-cut with our right skate, and it's just a gentle right side C-cut, and then a really big one with our left. So you can kind of think about it like that. As you're skating around the circle, it's almost like you're weaving along the lines of the circle. So we're opening up our hips, nice gentle C-cut with our right skate, and then a nice big one with our left. And that big one essentially just means this: you're thrusting off of that leg. So I constantly telling young kids, just think about it like the Batmobile. When Batman presses down on the pedal, flames come out of the muffler and he's flying away. So in that same way, he's creating thrust. He's creating himself some momentum. So think about that as your left leg C-cut. Nice right side C-cut, nice and slow, and then a really big thrust from your left onto your right. Our next step is, after the C-cut, we would do a C-cut and then we'd focus on a crossover. And the reason why we do a crossover is so that we can utilize the outside edge of our skate, and both our left leg C-cut and our right side outside edge kick will be launching us in the direction that we want to go. And that's why we're doing this crossover. To do the crossover, what we would do is we're teaching beginners in this manner. We want to first focus on a step over. So a step over is this: get on the outside edge before we even pick up the leg that we're going to cross over. And then as we're crossing over, we want to finish that so that they're always right beside each other. We don't want one in front of the other, and there's always some space in between. So again, we're transferring our weight to making sure our weight goes from our right onto our left, and then we're going to sit on that crossover leg. So the first way we're going to teach it is when we cross over, we're actually going to hold it. So when we hold it, we're going to let the players, as well as yourself when you're first learning, just to visualize, yes, okay, I've got a nice crossover. Naturally, the one that crosses over will be gently just a little bit further ahead of the other one, but we want to make sure that the first thing is not to pick up your foot, then get on an outside edge, then cross over. The first thing is to get on the outside edge. Get on that outside edge first, and then naturally it'll be a lot easier for me to maintain balance as I pick up my leg and cross over. The next step is we're actually going to keep this crossover leg on the ice. But before we do that, and before players get used to that feeling, we tell them to pick up their leg, because that's a heck of a lot easier for them to understand. And then when they cross over, they still need to hold it. Once you get that hold, again, lots of space in between, and we're going to try to keep them right beside each other. So here's what it looks like. You can hold it for like maybe 3 seconds. Okay, our next drill is going to be another crossover hold. This time we're going to do it with a C-cut where it actually stays on the ice. We're not going to pick up our leg to cross over, but we're going to complete the C-cut just by the reason why we rotate that heel in is so that it's nice and simple for me to cross that leg in front. Why are we not crossing that leg over? As soon as we pick up this leg, we're on one leg and we're just less stable. So we're not as stable as what we would be as if I did a C-cut, kept it on the ice, rotated my ankle in, and then completed the crossover without actually picking up that foot. And again, the reason why we cross over is so that I can get to the outside edge kick. The main focus is not on that right now. The main focus is literally just on creating a nice fluid C-cut and then crossing over. So last time, again, we kind of just focused on picking up our foot, lifting it up, and then crossing it in front. This time, I really want you to focus on creating a C-cut first, and then after the C-cut, naturally just rotate it in and then hold that outside edge, that crossover for at least 2 or 3 seconds, and then complete another C cut from there. Okay, one main correction point for the crossover with our leg staying on the ice is after we do the C cut, we're pressing into the toe. What we're going to naturally do is lift up our heel anyways to be able to rotate it in. And instead of actually picking up our foot and crossing it over, the toe should stay on the ice, but we could still kind of pick up the heel. And again, the reason why we're picking up that heel is that we're really pressing into the toe. So don't be afraid to lift up the heel a little bit, and it'll be a lot easier for you to naturally place it in front. And the only thing really that should stay on the ice is the toe. That's the first thing. And then the second correction point is once you get into the crossover, in order to hold this stance, sometimes we can kind of lose our balance and come out. We need 2 things to maintain our stability. 1, we need to make sure this is on an outside edge. A huge correction point is that a lot of players try to cross over, and this is their cross. It's not a full crossover. They're very upright, and we just need to make sure that we have lots of space in between. We're really sitting down low. Look, as I'm doing the demonstrations, I'm sitting down nice and low in a very athletic stance. So keep that nice athletic stance. And then the second point to holding this is go ahead and press into the toe of the outside edge. And what it'll do is create this sound. And it'll just give me that little bit of stability that I need in order to hold that position for the 2 or 3 seconds or whatever it is that you're going to do to hold it. And again, the main focus point is just making sure that you're nice and low, you're looking good, the technique is flawless. And again, it'll help us get into that next step of after completing the C cut and the crossover, getting into a full outside edge kick. Okay, our next drill is going to be an outside edge kick. We're going to get into that now, but we're going to do it with a crossover lift. So you're going to go ahead and go back to picking up your leg and crossing it over. The second this leg crosses over and touches down, again, keep in mind this is not a crossover. We want a nice firm crossover where there's lots of space in between. And again, they're right beside each other. And we're going to focus on just creating the outside edge rip. So right from here, as soon as this leg touches down, you're pressing into your toe of your outside edge, and then you're going ahead and ripping. So what direction do we rip in? As we're skating around our circle, if our face-off dot is right in the middle, I always want you kicking away from that face-off dot. So that's a perfect spot for us to do. So give us nice hip mobility as we're doing the drill. So check it out. Pick up your leg, and then as soon as it touches down, focus on the outside edge kick. Okay, 2 main correction points I want to focus on right now is as you're picking up your leg and crossing over, make sure that this stays in an athletic stance as well too. Some players will actually just kind of flop it in front instead of actually locking it. So think about locking it into place. So both legs should be nice and bent, but even as you're picking up this leg, it's very athletically locking into place. So we got to keep it nice and bent. And the second point is this: after you complete the crossover, touchdown, outside edge, you're going to have to pick up your foot. And when you pick up your foot and bring it back to a nice wide base, back to your hockey stance, just make sure it's nice and wide. Some players will complete the outside edge kick and they'll just come back to this stance where we should be really come back to a nice wide base, regain. It's almost like a resetting so that we have a nice firm base to begin the next crossover and then outside edge kick with. And again, after you do that kick, just make sure that you're not picking up your leg too high. We do the kick and it's almost like you're skimming the toe along the ice, and then boom, it comes back to a nice flat base. Again, just to maintain stability and be able to recover that leg back into a nice firm position quickly. Okay, before we move on to the full backwards crossover, we do the full shebang. This time we're going to do one last drill. We're going to focus on isolating just the outside edge. So this time, last time we did a pickup of our crossover leg, and as soon as we touched it down, we did an outside edge kick. This time we're actually going to keep this one on the ice. Doesn't mean that I can't keep transferring my weight onto that leg and keep bouncing off of it, so that should still stay nice and strong and ready to go. But this time, what we're going to focus on is just flipping this skate first to the outside edge. That's why we always wanted to do this first before we pick up our leg. So what we're gonna do is flip to the outside edge. And what will naturally end up happening is this leg, your crossover leg, will want to cross in front, and the outside edge will want to cross behind. And then as soon as it gets to that beautiful spot where you know, okay, all of my weight is situated underneath my leg, and boom, I can do my outside edge kick. So this is a really important thing. When we did our crossover, remember how I told you always touch down so that your feet are right beside each other. If one leg was ahead of the other, then what would naturally happen is underneath my chin, that's where all of my weight is going down. So right now, all of my weight is going straight down into my outside edge skate. And if I transfer my weight onto my crossover leg, underneath my chin is now that leg. So this is exactly where we want it to be. If one leg was ahead of the other, underneath my chin right now is nothing. It's no legs right now at all. So I can't isolate either my crossover leg or my outside edge leg and be able to transfer all my weight back down through that leg. So it's really important that, again, underneath your chin should be that leg where we want that weight to be. So, and again, if you did a crossover like this where one was ahead of the other, I see a lot of players kind of hopping through it and doing almost like a half crossover. So to do the full crossover, we should just be doing it nice and slow to begin and just focusing on the technique. And again, the most important thing of the technique is that the legs finish right beside each other. So here's what we're gonna do. This leg's gonna stay on the ice. You flip it to the outside edge and then very naturally cross one in front of the other. As soon as you get to that point, boom, focus on the outside edge kick. Always come back to a nice wide base and then repeat it again. So here's what it looks like. Okay, one main correction point is we want to make sure that we're really sitting down on our left skate as we're going in this direction. So after you complete that outside edge kick, we're going to be doing the kick, and go ahead and really sit down on that left leg. The more we bend our left leg as we do the outside edge kick, the more distance and the more length I can get. If this leg is bent this much, that's about as far as I can get it. But as soon as I sit down a little bit lower, look how much more length I can get. And that's what we want. As you're doing the motion, it should be nice and easy for us to do in motion. And the more you sit down on it, the more length that we can get. Okay, let's move on to the full backwards crossover now. So now the full motion. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by demonstrating it slow, and then I'm gonna demonstrate it a heck of a lot faster. Still a nice full crossover, which essentially means this. You're gonna do a C-cut, you're gonna glide, you're gonna do a crossover, you're gonna glide, you're gonna do an outside edge kick, and you're gonna glide. So a half crossover would just be a heck of a lot quicker without any glide, and we would focus more on acceleration than on maintaining speed. So our full backwards crossover is gonna help us maintain speed. We're gonna do it slow, and then we'll do it fast, but to start off, the first thing is a C-cut. Focus on that C-cut as it curls back in, then I focus on the crossover, so that's my second point, and then the last step is, as soon as I get to that crossover point, boom, I focus on the third point, which is the outside edge kick, and then if there was a fourth point, it would always be come back to a stable stance. So we have to come back to that nice athletic stance. So here's what it looks like nice and slow. Okay, so one main correction point for our full backwards crossover is a lot of players, the order again is C-cut, then crossover, and then a kick. And some players get so proficient at doing the crossover and the kick that they start doing just the crossover and the kick. And if there is a C-cut, it's either non-existent and you just pick up the leg and focus on the outside edge kick, or the C-cut is really, really quiet, and then we cross over and then we kick. And so if the C-cut's quiet, it just means that we're not creating enough thrust with that leg. Go ahead and make some noise, create a nice strong C-cut first, and then get into the outside edge and then the kick. Okay, our last step now is we're going to do it with puck control. When we're doing our backwards crossovers, if I'm skating in this direction, I'm always looking over my right shoulder so I can know where it is that I'm going. On my forehand side, we can get into a nice full X, or it can be sort of something like this where it's a bit of an X, but we want to make sure that we have a nice full base wrapped around the puck so that it's just easy for me to focus on legs and legs only, and all I got to do is flex my stick, maintain some grip, and just kind of drag the puck back. If I was going in the opposite direction, then what I would do is rotate my wrist in so that it's cupped on the backhand side, and again I'd be flexing my stick and I'd be cupping my puck and looking over my shoulder. So here's what it looks like at full speed on the forehand side. Just focus on legs.